Hopefully it's on this time. Fuck me. Okay. Thank you for watching. We are going to be going over our cash register final project. So up here we have our 4 classes. This is going to be our main driver class, Java 1 final project _1. And then we are going to have our retail item class here, cash register, and our sales receipt. So this class right here, the main Java 1 final project, this is going to be our main driver class. This is what's going to be powering the whole program. So in here we have several methods. We have our main method right here. Again, like I said, this is going to be like our main driver. So we have a scanner object initialized right here for later on in the program. We are going to be asking the user to input what item they had bought and how many, the quantity of the item that was bought. Next, we have a string array labeled table head. So the reason for this is that we are going to be displaying a table that's going to be containing the items, units on hand, and pricing for those items. So in order for everything to look nice and centered, we have our table head, which is going to be separate from everything else. And then the next 3 functions we are going to be calling is going to be our print function, which is going to be passing table head array as a parameter. Same thing with start register, that's going to be passing our scanner object as a parameter, and our print receipt is going to be calling the print receipt method. This is not passing any parameters, any arguments, because within this method it's going to be calling other methods in these classes. So onto our print method right here. So this is going to be displaying the initial table of the output that the user is going to see. So our system.outprintf, this is actually going to be adding a little bit of a padding in front of our table head array right here. So that way description, units on hand, and price are going to be centered over nicely once we display that table. Next, we have a for loop. So in here, the for loop is going to be going by the length of the table head array, which is just 3 elements. So we have initialized I, which is going to be our counter to go through this loop. So as long as the length of this array is greater than I, it's going to continue through this loop. So once these 2 variables, I right here, and then the length of table head, once those become equal, then the for loop will stop. And then right here, we have our print function, which is going to be stepping through the array through all 3 elements and printing them out. Then next, we have just a printf function. So for this, it's going to add like a nice break between the heading for the table and then the rest of the elements of the table. So this for loop right here, again, this is going to be going by the length of table head. So for this, all of our arrays that we have in this class and then in the next class, the retail item, all these arrays are going to be 3 elements. So we want to make sure that we are displaying everything centered and nothing is being out of bounds. We're not throwing any out of bounds errors. So for this block of code right here, this is going to be calling these methods get items, get description, get units on hand, get price in the retail item class right up in here. And then we have a system out print line. All this is just going to add a nice break in between all these elements that are being displayed. And so for these methods, we are passing I. So the reason for this is that because we are setting I equal to 0, and for this element, again, all of these arrays are the same length. So we are displaying the I, which is going to start out at 0, and then it's going to increment by 1. So as we are stepping through this for loop, all these arrays are going to be displayed element 0, element 1, and element 2. Next, we have our start register. For this is going to be starting our cash register class up here. So for this, again, we had passed the scanner object up in here, up right here. And then these lines right here, this is mainly just for the user So that way we can, the user knows exactly where we are in the program as far as, hey, which item did you buy? What was the quantity of that item that you had bought? So we are asking the user to enter in 1, 2, or 3. So enter 1 for jacket, 2 for designer jeans, 3 for shirt. So these are corresponding with the description array. And the reason for that, we are having them start at 1, 2, or 3, just more so for user clarity. Starting at 1, 2, or 3, go ahead and enter 1. In the table, we have these items as item 1, item 2, and item 3. We have an int item variable, which is taken in that input from the user. And then we are asking the user again, hey, how many of this item was bought? Then that user input is being stored in int amount. And then these two variables, those are getting passed over to a RetailItem method, which is being called right here. Then right here, we have print receipt, which is the sales receipt. A class that's being called, and then we are going to start the get receipt method, which is going to start all this right here. So, okay, now into RetailItem. Like I said, this is where we have our arrays that are storing all the information, all the data that we're going to be using throughout this program. So item 1, item number 2, and item number 3, that's just more so for clarity when we are displaying everything. And then for description, which is another, these are 2 string arrays. So description is actually going to have the item description. So jacket for item 1, designer jeans for item 2, shirt for item 3. And then this int array, units on hand, it's going to have the amount that we have for each item. 12 jackets, 40 designer jeans, and 20 shirts. And then our double array right here named price is going to have the pricing that's corresponding with each item that we have. Next, we have a get retail item. So for this method, this is accepting the item the user had input, 1, 2, or 3, and then the amount that they had bought. And so for int I, we are going to be calling the price method, and we are decrementing it by 1. The reason for this is that the other arrays, they start at 0, they don't start at 1, but we had asked the user to enter in 1, 2, or 3, just for simplicity's sake. And also for user readability. So they're going to be entering in 1, 2, or 3, decrementing it by 1. We are going to call the price array, and then whatever element that's stored in that slot is getting stored in double price. So for that price double variable, we are sending it over to cash register set subtotal method. Along with that variable, we are sending the amount variable, so how much that item the user had bought. And then we are sending price again. We're actually sending it to a different method this time. We are sending it to set item price in the cash register class. Okay, and these methods down here, these are more so just to display the table. So for these, again, it's going to be taking the int I variable. So this int I is going to be different than what is up here. This is what the user input. This is actually going off of the length of the table head array, which is just 3 elements. Again, all these arrays have only 3 elements, so this is just to go through and display whatever is in that slot. And we are formatting it to 10 spaces for the items array, 20 spaces for the description array, 10 spaces for the units on hand, and then for this one we are not formatting it anyway because the one this is the last slot of the table that's being displayed, so we don't need a format or have any sort of spacing or padding around the elements that are being displayed. And for this reason, we also are not having a printf and doing a formatting for the decimal point, is that all these elements have already been initialized with 2 decimal places. On to cash register. So cash register, we have several static variables. We have item price, total, total tax, subtotal as double variables, quantity sold as an int static variable. So we have several setters right here. So set item price, set quantity, set subtotal, set tax, and set total. So item price again, this is taking the price variable that was sent from RetailItem, these two right here. Then for set quantity, this is getting the amount that the user had input of how much they had bought. And that's being set to quantity sold, which is this int variable right here. Subtotal is taking the price and the amount. So we are calculating the subtotal, which is the price, the amount that is each element, each item, and then how many they have bought. We are multiplying that to get the subtotal. And the subtotal is getting sent to the set tax method, which is right here. That way we can go ahead and we can calculate the tax for that subtotal and then adding that total to total tax to be sent off to another method. Set quantity, again, we're taking that amount variable and sending it to set quantity, so that way we can go ahead and display that later on. Set tax, double subtotal, we are taking the subtotal variable that was passed from right here, and we are setting up total tax. So we had set up where the tax is 6%, so we had went ahead and placed that as a decimal, 0.06. And we are multiplying the subtotal, which is the price dot times the amount that was sold. We're multiplying that by 6% and setting that to total tax. And this variable is getting passed over to set total, which we are going to be calculating the total for the whole purchase. Again, set total right here is taking that double total tax variable, and we are setting up total for the whole purchase, and we are going to be displaying that later in the sales receipt class. And then now we have our getters right here. So all these variables that we initialized up here are being returned in these variables being returned in these methods when they are called later on when we are displaying the sales receipt. Get item price, displaying the item price of what the user had bought, subtotal, how much the subtotal was, which again is the price of the item times the amount that was bought. Total tax, again subtotal, which was multiplied by 6%, that's being stored right here. Total is going to be the total tax plus the subtotal. And then quantity sold, again this is just being displayed in this sales receipt as how much was sold. Going over to the sales receipt. This right here is just going to display all the data that was collected in all these methods right here and in the scanner object right here. So sales receipt, this right here just more so just to break everything up in the output for user readability. Sales receipt is going to be the header for the sales receipt. Cash register is calling the get item price. It's calling the get quantity, get subtotal, get tax, and get total methods that are in this class right here. So for these, we have 3 print line functions. Again, these are just reprinting what the user had input, quantity, how much the user had bought. This is the unit price for the items that the user had bought. And then these 3 functions are different. These are going to be printf functions. These are formatting the calculations for the subtotal, tax, and total. If we don't have these formatted in a way, even though these are set up as doubles, they will be displaying more than 2 decimal places. So the only amount that we want to see, we just want to see 2 decimal places after the decimal point. So subtotal, we are displaying the subtotal. Sales tax, we are grabbing the tax from the get tax function right here. We're displaying that. And then the total for the whole purchase, we are displaying that right here with the get total method. So let's go ahead and run this program. Again, like I said, here we have our 9-space padding. And we have our table head function right here. We have a nice line break. And then we have our 4 arrays that we have that stored all the information for the items, item descriptions, units on hand, and the pricing for each item. It's all being displayed right here. And then we have a nice line break again, and then this is for the user. This is asking the user to enter 1, 2, or 3. Again, enter 1 for jacket, 2 for designer jeans, 3 for shirt. So let's go ahead, let's say that we had bought a shirt. So let's say a couple shirts. So number 3 for shirt, and then how many were bought? Let's say that we bought 2. We bought 2 shirts. Okay, we have another line break just to break up this from the sales receipt. Okay, sales receipt heading, then the unit price, $24.95. So we're going to go over to retail item, we're going to cross-reference that. So shirt, we had the user input number 3, which again is an array, is actually element 2, 0, 1, 2. So item number 3, which is shirt, and it is $24.95. So it is displaying correctly. It's able, with the user input, it is able to go and grab that pricing for that item, which is shirt. Then for the subtotal, $49.90 is going to be double this along with the sales tax, the 6%. We go to subtotal and we have our sales tax, $2.99, 6% of the total right here. And then the total for the whole purchase, $42.89. Sorry, $52.89. Okay, and that is the program. And thank you for watching.